Hey everybody, welcome back to Go Read Some Comics with me, Professor Jenna. First and foremost, thank you so much for the support and engagement on my first Creature Commandos breakdown video, and thank you once again to James Gunn for sharing the video on social media. That will never not be absolutely surreal. I have been away from my computer for most of this week because I visited Seattle and Vancouver to attend the very last night of the Eras tour. It was one of the best and most fulfilling experiences of my entire life, and it's also why my voice is a little shot recording this because I was screaming and sobbing so much. I've been tempted to make a vlog or something about that experience, so let me know in the comments or on social media if that's something you would like to see. Either way, I could not think of a better topic to come back with. My favorite guy, G.I. Robot, getting his own solo episode. I just have to start by saying everything about this episode surprised me. I wasn't expecting it this early in the season, especially given the hype and the comments about how tragic episode 4 supposedly is, but I do love knowing that episode 4 is seemingly Weasel's as well as the cameo bonanza of Cersei's vision, but I am so glad that G.I.'s story is this early and that James's script was able to endear people to him in such a short span of time. For the uninitiated, there have been a number of G.I. robots since the heyday of DC's war comics. The first was created by Robert Kanigher, Ross Andru, and Mike Esposito in 1962's Star-Spangled War Stories number 101, and accompanied an ordinary human corporal named Mac out in the field. Their adventures largely revolved around Dinosaur Island, which is exactly what it sounds like, and these issues became a small part of Kanigher, Andru, and Esposito's 8-year arc in their war books called The War That Time Forgot. I will actually lose my mind if we get to see Dinosaur Island in the DCU, and given its ties to the OG Suicide Squad and the Losers and so many of those other wartime characters, I wouldn't entirely rule it out. The second GI, Mac, only appears in one issue before dying in a fight against a T-Rex. This brings us to Jake 1, or Jungle Automatic Killer Experimental, who is created by MIT and given a bunch of extra upgrades. He joins the Marines on a number of missions and eventually joins the Creature Commandos before sacrificing himself to save them. Weeks after that, the military sends out Jake 2, who follows a similar sort of arc with the military and with the Creature Commandos. It is believed that he died in a mission in deep space, but according to the DC Encyclopedia, he lived on into the 31st century. The Checkmate run of the 2000s introduced Jake 6.1, who is made up of a mix of the World War II programming and leftover android parts from Max Lord, which is interesting given the fact that Sean Gunn is playing both of those characters in the DCU. There have been some smaller reboots of him in the 2010s Man of War series and in Flashpoint, which combine his comic-accurate roots with a bulkier, Transformers-like design. If that history lesson didn't make it clear, we've largely seen G.I. in the context of war itself, which makes me love Creature Commandos' approach to his backstory even more. We see snippets, but there's clearly a lot that's still missing. Presumably, G.I. went on countless more missions with Sergeant Rock and the Easy Company than what we see in the episode, which makes me so much more excited about the prospect of Luca Guadagnino carrying the baton from here. But even beyond that, we get to see him in contexts and eras that even comic fans aren't really used to. Him being trotted out as a patriotic publicity stunt and how that can mean heaps of praise in the 1940s and patronizing laughter in the 1960s. I love that he is seemingly the father of all artificial intelligence on Earth in the DCU, at very least the Metal Men that Alan Tudyk's Will Magnus is building in the background. I love that my initial theory of how he got thrown into Belle Rev was completely wrong. It had nothing to do with the Easy Company, and it was instead about him cathartically taking out more modern neo-Nazis. James has also spoken about how the DCU has this alternate history already baked in, and I love seeing it in little things like G.I. being legally classified as a man when he's in trial. It makes me wonder what other metahuman and sci-fi court cases have been dealt with in the DCU. Ultimately, I love the emotional undercurrent of G.I.'s story. We see his life in flashes because that's probably how it feels for him too. He might not even be aware of how many times he got shut down and revived and upgraded along the way. And as much as people in universe laugh at the simplicity of his prime directive, there's a real dichotomy to it. Unfortunately, Nazis are not going away, so there's that component of his mission being never ending. But I also found myself being really moved by G.I.'s journey towards sentience. There is some precedent to it in the comics. The story of Joe, the first G.I. robot, essentially ends with him and a giant Japanese robot pausing mid-fight and sharing a knowing look before Joe kills him anyway. The conversation with Magnus, asking what G.I. really wants outside of his prime directive, really got to me. As someone who grew up in a religious household and wrestled for years with my feelings about free will and predetermination and purpose, I'm a sucker for those feelings being processed through fiction, and especially through robots like G.I. A lot of people asked me when I made my first Commandos video why I love G.I. robots so much, and I think it's that, combined with the fact that he is just such an anachronistic, cool character design, both within the context of a war comic and within the gods and monsters of the main DCU. This is not me being pro-AI. I absolutely have a lot of problems with it, and we do absolutely need to tell parables about how scary actual artificial intelligence can be, but there's beauty in seeing stories about robots grappling with their feelings and their sense of belonging. G.I. just wanted to belong somewhere, and by the end of the episode, he gets to both belong with a newfound family and fulfill his prime directive by protecting them, a high he's been chasing since his days with the Easy Company. And before anyone asks, I don't think he's fully dead. We can rebuild, and the idea of him being rebooted with a different relationship to his past and to Nina has so much narrative potential to me. Also, thank you to James for permanently changing my relationship with Coin-Operated Boy by the Dresden Dolls. That song has been on my playlist for the longest time, but I now can view it in an entirely new, beautiful way. I also have to talk about the other inmates when GI is being walked into the prison, because my fiance and I fully leapt off our couch. On the right is Crimson Centipede, a Wonder Woman villain created by Kanigher and Andrew in 1967's Wonder Woman 169. Despite his kind of sci-fi aesthetic, he's actually originally created by Mars, the god of war, in an attempt to make an enemy that's as powerful as Wonder Woman. His first appearance is kind of quaintly charming because he really just uses his powers to become a bank robber and punch her a lot. It also results in lines like this. There was an attempt to give him a modern update in 2017's Steve Trevor special, which reimagined him as this creation of Star Labs for use in the military. Again, his appearance was brief, but he did fight a bunch of incel terrorists. Then there is Animal Vegetable Mineral Man, a character who I truly cannot believe is in the DCU this early. Created by Arnold Drake and Bruno Premiani in 1964's The Doom Patrol 89, he's really Sven Larsson, a student of the chief who is exposed to a vat of amino acids. This gives him the ability to transform into any animal, vegetable, or mineral he can think of, which usually leads to him sporting dinosaur and tree-themed extremities. This isn't his first TV appearance because he has factored into the Doom Patrol TV show, but I still love knowing that he's already in this fully fledged DCU. Next to him is, I believe, Fisherman. This has been kind of a point of contention in one of my group chats, but I'm gonna go with it being Fisherman because the shoulder and the gauntlet design looks so similar to his more modern appearances. Created by Nick Cardy in 1965's Aquaman 21, the Fisherman starts off as a black market thief before bonding with a possessive parasite that can grow anything it touches. Where have we heard that before?
You know, it would be nice just to have your support, just for once.
Catch up!
Fisherman has been a villain of Aquaman, Blue Devil, and even Nord, and the mantle was more recently rebooted around Infinite Crisis. He did return in the most recent Suicide Squad ongoing, where he was killed by Bloodsport. If this is Fisherman, I love knowing that we have some morsels of Aquaman-related lore already out there in the DCU, especially because I feel like it's going to be a hot minute before we fully see that corner of the universe, just to get some distance away from the past. And finally, Shaggy Man. I can't believe I get to mention Shaggy Man. Created by Gardner Fox and Mike Sekowsky in Justice League of America 45, he's one of the more recurring and kind of tragic villains of the JLA Satellite era. Go ahead and take a drink because I'm mentioning the Satellite era. Shaggy Man is essentially a mix of Frankenstein and Bigfoot and is a big lumbering monster created by various mad scientists for whatever reason suits the plot. His origins have ranged from being a mix of plastic tissue and the DNA of a salamander to being a proper android in the New 52. I say Shaggy Man is a tragic character because he's had a really brutal end almost every single time he's fought the Justice League. He's had his hair pulled out, he's been yeeted into space, he's been shrunken down and held in the satellite, and tranquilized and turned into a trophy at the Justice League Christmas party. With all of these cameos, I do have to say, I love that the DCU is so committed to comic accurate character designs that it can just throw characters in the background and have them immediately be recognizable and natural to the universe. As much as I love the MCU and love the Arrowverse, both have had to filter costumes and character designs through this very realistic house style instead of just letting them be. I lost count of how many Arrowverse villains just became guys in leather jackets, and part of me mourns the Battle of Endgame that could have swapped out some of those generic armies with actual B and C-list Marvel characters. As I already tweeted, if you told me 3 years ago that I would get a main universe DC adaptation with all of these guys and G.I. Robot and Will Magnus, I would not have believed you at all. I think that's exactly why Creature Commandos is proving to be the perfect way to kickstart the DCU, because it's really fleshing out this world and how heightened and outlandish it is before we view it through the lens of household names like Superman. What did you think of G.I. Robot's big Creature Commandos episode? Do you agree with me that he's probably not dead? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow me on social media at Hey It's Jenna Lynn. Again, thank you so much for watching. It is so fun to get to sit and make these videos as each episode airs, so don't forget to like and subscribe if you don't want to miss out on future ones. And as always, go read some comics.